The Terran Orphanage on Luna Station had been humanity's pride for over 2 centuries. Built into the lunar surface with transparent aluminum domes offering breathtaking views of Earth, it housed 3,847 children from across human space. Victims of the ongoing Hijgemony War, refugees from worlds that had been glassed, survivors of raids that left no other survivors. Director Sarah Chun walked through the morning commons, watching children from a dozen worlds sharing breakfast. There was Kai from New Hokkaido, whose parents died defending the orbital platforms. Maria from Kepler 442b, found floating in an escape pod after the Zephyrian Collective turned her colony world to ash. Tommy from Mars, whose military family had been vaporized in the Battle of Olympus Mons. The children laughed, played, learned. They were humanity's future, carefully tended in the one place both sides of the Galactic War had agreed was sacred ground. The Hijgemony Accords, signed by every major species, declared orphanages, hospitals, and refugee centers off-limits to military action. Sarah paused at the observation deck, where 8-year-old Zara pressed her face against the transparasteel, watching Earth rise over Luna's horizon. "Miss Chun," Zara whispered, "why do the pretty blue clouds on Earth look angry today?" Sarah followed the child's gaze. Those weren't clouds. They were drive signatures, hundreds of them, approaching in attack formation. The alarms started screaming exactly 37 seconds later. Admiral Marcus Webb had been in his quarters aboard the UES Retribution, reviewing casualty reports from the Centauri front, when the emergency channel crackled to life. All stations, all stations. Luna Station is under attack. Repeat, Luna Station is under attack. The orphanage. The transmission cut to static. Webb's blood turned to ice. He activated his command console, bringing up the tactical display of the Sol system. 300 Hijgemony warships, led by the dreadnought Eternal Conquest, had dropped out of hyperspace and were bombarding Luna. "Sir!" His communications officer burst into his quarters. "The Hijgemony fleet, they're targeting civilian infrastructure. The orphanage took a direct hit from plasma cannons. It's gone, sir." Webb stared at the tactical display. The orphanage's transponder signal had vanished. Nearly 4,000 children, along with their caretakers and teachers, vaporized in seconds. "Get me the Joint Chiefs. Get me the President. Get me everyone." Webb's voice was barely a whisper, but it carried the weight of a collapsing star. "And send a priority message to every human fleet, every human world, every human outpost." "What should the message say, sir?" Webb looked up, and his communications officer took an involuntary step back. The Admiral's eyes held something that hadn't been seen in human space for 3 centuries. Something that predated the Geneva Conventions, predated civilization itself. "Tell them the Hijgemony just taught humanity what total war means." The news reached the outer colonies within hours. On New Terra, colonists stopped their harvesting and stared at their screens in stunned silence. On the mining station Ceres Prime, hardened asteroid miners wept openly in the corridors. On the research outpost at Proxima Centauri, scientists abandoned their experiments to stare into the void. But it was on Earth itself that the transformation began. Dr. Elizabeth Kane had spent her career developing agricultural systems for peaceful terraforming. When the news broke, she was in her laboratory at Geneva University, working on soil microorganisms that could accelerate plant growth on dead worlds. She looked at her research, decades of work dedicated to creating life, and felt something fundamental shift inside her. Within 6 hours, she had contacted 12 colleagues. Within 12 hours, they had formed a research collective. Within 24 hours, they had repurposed their life-creating organisms into something else entirely. Biological weapons that could strip the atmosphere from a planet in weeks. Across human space, the same transformation was occurring. Peaceful researchers became weapons designers. Traders became blockade runners. Farmers became soldiers. The gentle shepherds of humanity's expansion had remembered they were descendants of persistence hunters who had once chased prey across continents until it collapsed from exhaustion. The president of the Terran Federation called an emergency session of Parliament. Her speech was broadcast to every human world. "For 3 centuries we have fought with honor. We have observed the laws of war. We have protected the innocent. We have shown mercy to the defeated. We did this because we believed our enemies shared our basic understanding of civilized conduct. They have shown us we were wrong. Today, I am suspending the Terran rules of engagement. Today, I am authorizing the deployment of weapons we swore we would never build. Today, we stop fighting like civilized beings and start fighting like humans. To our enemies, you wanted to see what humanity becomes when you threaten our children. You're about to find out. The first Hijgemony world to fall was Xerion Prime, home to 2.8 billion Zephyrians. Took exactly 43 hours. The human fleet didn't announce their arrival. They didn't demand surrender. They simply dropped out of hyperspace and began deploying Dr. Kane's atmospheric processors. Within hours, the planet's blue-green atmosphere began turning brown. Within days, nothing lived on the surface. The Hijgemony High Command called an emergency session. General Thax, the architect of the Luna Station attack, addressed the council with what humans would recognize as barely controlled panic. The humans have gone insane, he clicked, his chitinous limbs scraping against the marble floor. They're not targeting military installations. They're not taking prisoners. They're sterilizing entire worlds. The holographic display showed the expanding sphere of human retaliation. 47 worlds dead. 63 more under attack. The human fleets moved like a plague, consuming everything in their path. They're using weapons we've never seen, reported Admiral Kresh of the Third Fleet. Ships that seem to phase in and out of normal space. Projectiles that ignore shields. Viruses that target specific genetic markers. It's as if they've been preparing for this war for centuries and only now decided to fight it. What the Hijgemony didn't understand was that humans had been preparing, not for war, but for survival. Every peaceful technology could be weaponized. Every life-saving innovation could be turned to death. Humanity had simply forgotten this truth until reminded of what they truly were. On Earth, the war production centers worked around the clock. But these weren't manufacturing traditional weapons. They were building devices the Hijgemony couldn't comprehend. Machines that could crack a planet's crust with resonance frequencies. Nanobots that could disassemble matter at the atomic level, quantum weapons that could erase sections of spacetime itself. The message was simple: you killed our children. Now we kill everything. The war ended not with a surrender, but with a revelation. It had been 6 months since Luna Station's destruction. The Hijgemony had lost 127 worlds. Their mighty fleets had been reduced to scattered survivors hiding in the void between stars. The proud alliance that had once controlled half the galaxy now cowered in bunkers on their remaining worlds, waiting for the human plague to find them. The end came when the human fleet arrived at Hijgemon, the capital world of their enemies. But instead of the immediate destruction that had become humanity's signature, something different happened. A single human ship approached the planet. It was the UES Mercy, the same class of vessel that had once carried aid to disaster-stricken worlds. Now it carried Admiral Webb and a delegation of 12 humans. The Hijgemony leadership met them in what had once been their Grand Council chamber. General Thax, the architect of Luna Station's destruction, waited with the remnants of his government. "We come to discuss terms," Admiral Webb announced. Thax's compound eyes glittered with desperate hope. "Surrender terms? What do you want? Reparations? Territory? We'll give you anything." Webb shook his head slowly. "You misunderstand. We're not here to accept your surrender. We're here to explain the new reality." A holographic display activated, showing the galaxy. Hundreds of red dots marked dead worlds, the Hijgemony's former territories, now lifeless husks. "For millennia, you species have fought wars with rules," Webb continued. "You've conquered and been conquered, but you've maintained certain boundaries, certain lines you wouldn't cross. You believed these rules were universal constants." Webb's voice grew quieter, more terrible in its calmness. "You forgot that humans weren't raised by the galaxy. We weren't taught your rules. We adopted them because we chose to be better than our nature. But when you bombed that orphanage, you reminded us what we really are. We are the species that drove mammoths to extinction by following them for years until they died of exhaustion. We are the ones who looked at the atomic bomb and said, 'Not powerful enough.' We are the creatures who turned warfare into a science and extinction into an art form. The silence in the chamber was absolute. The hegemony as you knew it is over, Webb announced. Some of your species will survive, the ones that had no part in targeting our children. They will be relocated to worlds we choose, under supervision we provide, following rules we dictate. Your military is dissolved. Your weapons are forfeit. Your government is disbanded. Thax found his voice. And the rest of us? Webb looked at him with eyes that held no hatred, no anger, only the cold certainty of an apex predator. The rest of you get to live with the knowledge of what you've awakened. You wanted to see what humans become when you threaten our children. Now you know. Now everyone knows. Webb turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and General Thax? The 3,847 children you killed at Luna Station? We've memorized every one of their names. Every human child knows those names now. They're part of our history, our culture, our identity. When human children learn to count, they learn those names. When human children learn about courage, they learn those names. When human children grow up and join our fleets, they carry those names with them. Webb smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression any being in that chamber had ever seen. Congratulations, General. You've made our children immortal. And in return, we've shown the galaxy what total war really means. From now on, when species consider going to war, they won't ask, can we win? They'll ask, are we sure the humans won't get involved? Because now everyone knows we don't fight wars. We solve problems. Permanently. The human delegation left Hijgemony that day. The planet wasn't destroyed. It was left to serve as a monument to a simple truth that the galaxy would never forget. Humanity had tried to be civilized. They had been reminded why their ancestors never were. And the universe would never make that mistake again.